Hey guys, I'm back. This time I'm talking about Bloodsport. This is my second time recording the video because I recorded it a few days ago, but I was so tired. I did it at like 10 p.m. and I don't want to subject you guys to that. So here we go. Bloodsport, Suicide Squad. How dangerous is he? And also check out for spoilers. So, Bloodsport falls into the category of being a mercenary, assassin type of character. He rubs elbows with other DC characters like Deadshot, Deathstroke, Red Hood, Peacemaker, KG Beast, Bronze Tiger, and Cheshire, all characters that I'd like to cover at some point. Bloodsport is Robert Dubois. He may or may not have been a massive Jean Claude Van Damme fan. Robert grew up with an abusive father who raised him to be a killer from the day he was born. In the comics, Robert was a draft dodger who, during the Vietnam War, fled to Canada, and while there, he found out that his younger brother had assumed his identity and had gone to Vietnam in his stead, where he was wounded in action, losing both his arms and his legs. This drove Robert mad with guilt and feelings of inadequacy, causing him to turn to the life of being a mercenary. So, in the modern view of the character that we see in the Suicide Squad, I think it actually makes more sense that this Vietnam era draft dodging mercenary was actually Robert's father. It even says in the movie that Robert was trained from the day he was born by his mercenary father, so I think that's what happened. And, I would guess, just fun fact, like around that era, there was a lot of mercenary stuff going on in Africa, what with Rhodesia and all that. So, what I would imagine is that Robert's dad dodges a draft, his brother goes to war, gets injured, and then he ends up feeling inadequate, so he becomes a mercenary, goes off to Africa, and then eventually, when Rhodesia falls and turns to Zimbabwe, then he goes to the UK, and that is why Bloodsport has a British accent. Thank you. Anyway, life was not easy for Robert. While his father succeeded in making him into a warrior, he put his son on a path that would eventually see him hired to kill Superman by Lex Luthor. Although Bloodsport was able to put Superman in the ICU, he was captured and brought into Belle Reve Penitentiary, where he was eventually coerced into joining the Suicide Squad by Amanda Waller. So, what makes Bloodsport deadly is a combination of his training and weapons at his disposal. Bloodsport doesn't have any superpowers, but he does have extensive military special operations experience, which works in tandem with his equipment that he got from Lex Luthor. We know from Amanda Waller that Bloodsport served on a special operations team with Colonel Rick Flag. Flag is specifically mentioned as being a member of Special Forces, and his icon depicts a skull wearing a green beret. Green Berets in real life saw extensive combat in Iraq and Afghanistan, but also served in other countries all around the world, training up indigenous forces and conducting anti-terrorist operations. Flag and Bloodsport are specifically mentioned as conducting a mission together in Iraq, which is basically DC's version of Iraq. It's kind of hard to narrow down what exactly Bloodsport's military unit was. I mean, for all we know, he wasn't even in the military. He was just raised to be like an assassin and then worked with the military. But I'd like to think that since he's British, he was in the SAS or the SBS. Typically in real life, you can't be that much of a badass without having some sort of military training. So now we're going to talk about Bloodsport's equipment. He uses some equipment that sets him apart from his real-life counterparts and other DC characters, even like Deadshot and Red Hood. Bloodsport's most identifying features are his helmet and armor. The helmet, which is inspired by the xenomorph from Alien, is collapsible and was weak enough to break apart while colliding with concrete, but it presumably did its job as Bloodsport didn't die when he hit the wall. One added benefit that the helmet does add is that it does protect his face as well as his head. God, that's all part of the same thing. It protects his face. It's not just on the top of his head like a bicycle helmet or whatever. And it also looks really cool and intimidating, which is always helpful when, you're running up to someone. And it's collapsible too, which makes it easy to store. And now we're going to talk about his armor. So his armor presumably offers some level of protection. We don't really know if it's bulletproof or not. I would say I would lean towards that it at least is probably better than a standard bulletproof vest. Otherwise, why would he even bother wearing it? But what makes his armor special is that he can basically store weapons in his armor and take off chunks of his armor to turn into kind of whatever weapon he needs. In the comics, he has a superpower where he can just kind of pull weapons out of thin air, but in the movie, he can turn his suit using some sort of nanotech from Lex Luthor and have it turn into a specific set of weapons. So now I'm going to discuss each of those weapons. So this is probably going to be like the next 20 minutes of the video. Anyway, Bloodsport's primary weapon is a gun that can transform into a larger and larger caliber rifle. The gun starts out rather small as a handgun that fires a small caliber round, so this is the weakest and quickest version of the gun, so it's useful when Bloodsport needs to kill someone really quick and do like a quick draw type thing. And the next version of the gun doesn't exactly look like a typical gun, but it is the form most commonly used by Bloodsport. It seems to fire 3 rounds at once and can be generated relatively quickly in each hand. The downside of this design is that it doesn't allow Bloodsport to look down the sight, although it doesn't seem like he misses very often in the first place. After that, this gun turns into a rifle and then into a larger blaster-looking thing. At its highest level, the gun was strong enough to push back King Shark and temporarily subdue him. I mean, Robert even thought that he could kill King Shark if he kept shooting at him, so that just goes to show how much damage that gun is capable of. So overall, I think this is actually a really good weapon to have, just its convenience to carry around and to generate, and it's relatively useful if he's going into a building. Maybe he doesn't want to have the full loadout, but if he's outside, he can fully assemble the gun and he can basically shoot like a high caliber grenade shotgun type of shot. And it's very useful. I'd say the only downside is that maybe there would be situations where he would want to have the rifle, but now he has to put it all together as quick as he can, and it might just be better to have a dedicated rifle on hand, like imagine if he was storming the beach like at the beginning of the Suicide Squad and he's already getting shot at. It might be better to just already have a rifle. Anyway, now we're going to talk about Bloodsport's Flamethrower. As we can see, the flames only go a few feet out. It's similar in use to when you used to light a can of Axe body spray as a kid. Don't do that. The strength of this weapon is in its convenience. While it may not be the most conventionally effective weapon, it's useful as a backup because it appears to not take up much space and is hot enough to kill targets with relative speed. The downside of using a flamethrower in real life comes from its limited range and the size/explosive nature of the device. In past wars, troops equipped with flamethrowers had among the highest mortality rates, but were still sought after for their ability to clear bunkers and other enclosed areas. Bloodsport's Flamethrower lacks that level of utility, but also suffers none of the drawbacks of conventional flamethrowers. Thus, it's pretty useful to have. Continuing on in no particular order, we have the Gerot. Now, a Gerot is a pretty useless weapon in the grand scheme of things, but it is good for when you're sneaking up behind someone. You can just kind of pop their head off. And maybe in like a grappling scenario, if you could get one of these out and you could slice someone up pretty easily. I don't really have a problem with them having this weapon because it's really easy to carry. It doesn't weigh anything and he can just pop it out of his armor whenever he needs it. So next we have Bloodsport's Slingshot. Slings are a weapon as old as time and have been used in every era. Basically, all you need is a piece of cloth and a rock. Bloodsport's weapon is more of a slingshot. The issue with slingshots is their general inability to generate enough power to cause a substantial impact with the projectile. However, in the Suicide Squad, Bloodsport's slingshot has no problem killing people. We do see that when he does kill people with it, he's hitting them in the eyes and the neck. So maybe it isn't as powerful as a gun, but it has that ability to be relatively silent. So I don't know if it's the best option overall, but if he can just form it out of nothing and he's confident enough to be able to kill people with it, then why not? Personally, I think it's probably better to just go in with the rifle, but whatever. You'll see the theme with most of these weapons is that they don't have much of drawback because they're just part of his armor. They don't weigh anything. So now we are going to talk about the flail. So I actually own one of these. Unfortunately, it's at my parents' house. Otherwise, I would start flinging it around for you guys. So flails kind of suck as weapons most of the time. Usually it's better to have a bludgeon that is fixed. I think there was a study done on another YouTube channel, probably Shadiversity or Scalagrim, or both, where they hit a target with a flail and a mace over and over again, and the mace is able to generate more power. So it kind of makes you think, why would I put this metal ball on a string when I could just put it on a stick and I don't have to worry about it bouncing off and hitting me in the face? It'll generate the same or more power if I just fix it on a stick. I'd say this is probably the least useful weapon. It's really unpredictable in its use, and although it can kill people, but I think there's a reason why we only ever see Bloodsport use this once in the movie. So let's just move on. Next we have the sword. So Bloodsport has this pretty cool like one-handed katana machete looking thing that, like the rest of his weapons, he can form out of nothing. I wonder if that would affect the actual strength of the blade, just because if you fold a blade like in real life, it's going to just be super fragile. I mean, we see it work okay in the movie. Machetes are a pretty decent melee weapon and can be a valuable tool, and Bloodsport uses this weapon as a very late backup, which is probably for the best. It's obviously a lot safer to shoot someone than to try and slice and stab them. But yeah, pretty good choice. So lastly, we have the grappling hook, and I've spoken about grappling hooks about 18 times. Maybe not that many, like 8 times I've spoken about grappling hooks. In my opinion, like, they haven't designed one in a movie or a show that looks like it would actually work. But if you can shoot that thing and it can embed in concrete, you can shoot it into a person and it will embed in their face. So it's got some use as a weapon, like a way backup weapon after you've run out of ammo. But yeah, not bad in the grand scheme of things, I guess, but I wouldn't want to shoot that into concrete and try and hang off of it. That would not be wise. So I would say the one thing that Bloodsport is missing from his equipment that I've noticed is he doesn't seem to have any explosives. I know in the movie they have a bunch of C4, but we don't really know if that's his or not. In real life, soldiers typically bring stuff like grenades and flashbangs and stuff because they seem to be pretty useful. So I would imagine that Bloodsport should probably bring some explosives like that just to make his life easier. That's probably the one thing he's missing. And oh shit, I forgot about the death touch. So of course it's possible to kill a man with a single blow, but it's a matter of chance and cannot be wielded with certainty. Although I'm just an amateur, so what the hell do I know? So finally, I can now discuss how deadly Bloodsport would be in real life. I'm going to be a little controversial here, and I'm going to put him at a 9 out of 10, which is the highest score that I've given out so far. Usually in these videos, I end up discussing martial arts for like half of the runtime, but there's really no need to discuss martial arts here, aside from maybe the death touch, because Bloodsport has a realistic special operations skill set and an advanced, yes, yet useful equipment and weapons. So I really don't see that he's going to have too much of a need to do martial arts. And the thing is, the closer you get to real life, how people do it in real life, I think the closer you're going to get to seeing just how deadly someone could be. He's a 9 out of 10 for me just because if he wanted to kill you, he's going to come at you in a very lethal way, as opposed to perhaps Killer Croc or even Harley Quinn. They're just so random and not, not conventionally trained that I feel like they wouldn't be quite as deadly as Bloodsport. You'll probably see like a lot of the assassins are going to be ranked higher on the deadlier scale. So I'm going to put him at a 9, maybe like slightly lower than a 9, like an 8.5. But let's just call it a 9 for now. So anyway, that's the end of the video. Happy that you guys checked it out. I'm happy to put another one of these out. I've written a few scripts, so I don't know if I want to spoil what's coming next. But yeah, there's going to be more regular videos coming out, at least for the next month or so. I've got about 4 scripts down. I have a few characters that people have asked me to do, so look forward to that. And please subscribe. Sometimes people watch my videos and they say, oh, you should cover Red Hood, you should cover Robin. And yeah, I've already covered a few of them, so you should subscribe if you like this kind of thing, and you can check out some of my other videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week, hopefully, or sooner. All right, catch you later. Bye-bye.